Thank you for listening at politicalstorm.com. I'm John Small. Today, I actually have a guest that, this is a very interesting guest, Richard Saunders. He's an author, but he's also a big old phony. Well, I shouldn't say that. He is the great imposter. And it's kind of funny because he's portrayed a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. But one of the things that's really interesting is he has a connection to one of the people that's running for president. As a matter of fact, it's Donald Trump. And he portrayed an attorney and sued Donald Trump. That's interesting. We're going to be chatting with him today. Also going to talk about a book that he has out. So our guest again today, Richard Saunders, here on politicalstorm.com. Richard, how are you, sir?
Very good, thanks. How are you?
Fantastic. We're excited to chat with you here. This has been a very interesting political season so far, and I know we're just kind of getting started on the campaign. It's amazing how early they start campaigns these days. But I was reading an article here that you have and some info that you have that says, what can we expect from Trump moving forward? So what kind of things can we expect from Trump moving forward?
Well, we can never predict what's going to come out of his mouth, that's for sure. But the early returns are just incredible. Three wins in a row now with Nevada yesterday and increasing margins. I mean, something like close to 45% yesterday. We have Super Tuesday next week.
Yeah, it's sneaking right up.
Primaries in many states, and if Cruz and Rubio stay in the race at that point, and Trump does extremely well next Tuesday, it could be game over. Could be game over, and Trump could run away with the nomination.
Now, you've got kind of an interesting story here about your connection to Donald Trump, because, again, we're visiting with Richard Saunders, also known as the Great Imposter. You single-handedly prosecuted a high-profile lawsuit against Trump and an army of lawyers in 2007 while you were impersonating an attorney before the federal court in Boston. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'm a method writer. So what I try and do is I write fiction, but I create drama in real life, attempt to, by interacting with interesting people in highly unusual situations that I orchestrate. Then fictionalize the episode and fold it into my Secret Agent Man novel. So that's how I intersected with Donald Trump in this lawsuit.
And what was that experience like? I'm assuming that had to be a pretty interesting experience.
It was very much so. So in my alter ego, the Great Imposter, what I do is I have a long list of basically almost like occupations or episodes in which I try and gain expertise in an area that is outside of my norm. So I had the attorney on that list for many years, and I had never got involved in that area. And I was looking for an interesting case to set up and get involved in. And what happened was I noticed that the Donald Trump television show, The Apprentice, was different from other reality shows and TV shows in that when the show was over, cameras were off, the show's gone, somebody gets a real-life job in the Trump organization.
Yeah.
So that meant normal casting procedures shouldn't have been followed, and that you would have to follow all the employment hiring laws. And I think they dropped the ball on that.
That's interesting. Now, so at one point you guys were adversaries. Now, would you say that you're still adversaries, or are you supporting him, or do you kind of have somebody that you're supporting in the race at this time?
I'm up in New Hampshire, and this year the candidates were it's hard to get behind an individual for most of the campaign. Normally, in most of these sessions, and I've been voting since the late 70s, I kind of get behind somebody early on and then work in New Hampshire to support that person. But I actually made a last-minute decision in New Hampshire this year after the final debate, the Saturday before our Tuesday primary, and I supported John Kasich.
It's funny because you don't hear his name come up very often. He's hardly ever in the news. They have really, the media has picked their favorites to talk about. You hear about Trump, you hear about Rubio, you hear about Cruz, you hear, of course, about Clinton and Sanders, but there are other people in the election that some people have forgotten they're even involved.
Exactly, and I think Kasich came in distant fourth place. fifth place actually yesterday. But he came in second in New Hampshire. He had a pretty strong showing in New Hampshire, where he did the hard retail campaigning and get out there for over a year, and he won a lot of support in New Hampshire.
Well, and that's the thing. I think a lot of these people, if you actually have a chance to hear them, people tend to like what they hear, but they haven't gotten their face in the spotlight as much because we've had some really big personalities that the media has just loved to point out. Now, as you were studying Trump to face him in court, what kind of things did you learn about him, and do you think that he would be a good nomination? It's kind of looking like he may be the Republican nomination.
Right, and I mean, when the people speak, that's our democracy. If that's what they want, then that's, as someone once said, you get the government you deserve.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of most of his extreme positions, but I don't fear them as much as a lot of people that are against him. I think that with our government's separation of powers and the fact that once somebody actually wins the presidency, I think it's a very sobering point, and stances moderate. That people will say anything to get elected, and promises are really goals, and extreme goals are very hard to actually accomplish with our adversarial system of three branches of government with carrying almost equal weight.
Again, visiting right now with a man that's gone by the nickname The Great Imposter, Richard Saunders. He's an author and does a really interesting thing where he does method writing. So let's talk about method writing, because you use that to do quite a bit of the writing that you do, and that's also how you ended up in the lawsuit against Mr. Trump. So how does this method writing work? And is this something you created, or where'd you come up with this?
I created it. There's a definition out there that's different than how I work it. Sort of method acting, and it kind of came off that. So it's basically the protagonist of my novel is the reincarnation of Albert Einstein. So he is the secret agent man in the novel.
Nice.
So what I try to do is impersonate that character, pretend I'm in that character, put myself in his shoes, and then try and create really interesting situations and get the character in adversarial situations against very smart people like Donald Trump, a former governor, William Weld, and create scenarios like this lawsuit, which we settled out of court, and then if the acting episode in real life is interesting enough, then it becomes fiction in the novel. Only very slightly fictionalized. The names have changed, but the stories are really how they played out in real life.
That's interesting. So now, of the method writing, when you're doing this, what would you say has been the most interesting experience you've had as you've been doing this method writing?
I tell you, the most incredible one to me was I had a crazy idea of a formula for fiction that would make popular fiction, and in order to try and test it out the hypothesis, the idea was to find an unknown small-time author, mid-list or below, and give him writing advice and see if he uses that writing advice and if it makes him successful. So I went to a author appearance at Barnes & Noble in Salem, New Hampshire back in 1998. I met a first-time author. I spoke with him at length about my advice for basically a combination of factors that would help him stand out as a novelist. He appeared to take my advice and became extremely successful. And that man was Dan Brown.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a one in a million shot. I was just blown away when he hit it big with Da Vinci Code, which appeared to have taken large portions of my advice to heart and used it in some of his ideas in that novel.
Now, let's talk about your book, Journey, a short story. Now, how long did it take to put this together? Is this kind of a lifelong work, or is this something that you put together just recently?
Exactly. It's a lifelong work. When I was 9 years old, I came across the fact that I was born 10 months after Albert Einstein died, which led me to speculate, what if Einstein was reincarnated? So I created the Secret Agent Man character as a comic strip as a 9-year-old kid.
Neat.
And that grew into short stories, and then eventually the novel, which I've been building in real time since 1965, when I was a kid. I also was inspired at that same time by the story of the great imposter, who we had a local connection to in Lawrence, Mass. And I combined the two to create the Secret Agent Man novel.
Again, visiting right now with Richard Saunders, and again, I really do appreciate taking the time to chat with us. For people who would like to be able to check out the book, Journey, a short story, where's the best place to find that?
It's scattered in bookstores across the country. If it's not in your local bookstore, they can get it from their distributor usually within 2 days. Online, everywhere books are sold online, you can find it. And, of course, through the website, secretagentman.org. And on Twitter, my handle is RF Saunders.
Richard, thank you again for taking the time to chat with us, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Again, our guest today has been Richard Saunders. I'm John Small for politicalstorm.com. The preceding broadcast you just heard has been executive produced by Lawrence Rassin, co-founder of politicalstorm.com, line produced, edited, and narrated by yours truly. I'm John Small. From the John and Heidi Show and Sunny Radio, this program is expressly for politicalstorm.com and its affiliated networks and was recorded on Wednesday, February 24th, 2016.